is the mind inherently unruly, or has it been entrained to become unruly? And if it's been entrained, it can be untrained and trained to be disciplined or still.
Well, is there an unruly universal mind? No, there's not. But there's an unruly, socially conditioned mind, which is connected to the emotional blocks, which hold it fixed within the perception of those particular blocks. So when you release yourself from those blocks, you start to release your mind to become more universal. So it's very, very important to go through the body first to discover these particular blocks, and then become universally attentive. And becoming universally attentive, and then you apply this to your circumstances in terms of observing what's really occurring in front of you, which is a test for you to discover where your downfalls are, where you're actually being privately observing, which causes a universal mind to become judgmental. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting subject. The universal mind, as far as the first thing the universal mind will experience is a love and abandonment within that love and affection in terms of a childlike view. The universal mind is in that child. And then they're emotionally held in a psychotic state because they can't be who they're really meant to be. And that emotional psychosis is basically what occurs. The connection between the universal mind then becomes the thinking mind, because the universal mind is then criticized because it's too vast, its imaginations are too fantastical. It's a beautiful thing. And then the heart begins to close. And as soon as the heart begins to close, then the universal mind goes into a socialized mind. So it's very, very important to embrace open-heartedness. Open-heartedness then will look at the restrictions, and the restrictions will release the mind. Once the restrictions are released, and then if I sit still, then there's no thought form. So what is universal mind in terms of no thought forms? Stillness is arrived upon through the breath at that particular stage. All you've got is your breath. So you breathe in and you breathe in. And then you slow your breath down to a certain degree, and then you become aware of something you weren't aware of before, because you're no longer concerned with something prior. You're becoming aware of what you need to really be aware of, and what you really need to, what everyone needs to be really aware of is, why can't you be still? And through that stillness, we become open-hearted to see what really needs to be occurring. Then consciousness is then entangled. Universal mind and heart consciousness are then evolved together. And the universal consciousness is the empty force of creation. And the empty force of creation then communes with the capacity of the heart to realize, heart consciousness. And heart consciousness is the only way that human beings can realize the universal mind. Then the universal mind, you say, well, that is a perfected state of heart consciousness, or God consciousness, or the universal creation is then you're made aware through the limitations of your heart consciousness within your physical framework, which is kind of limited. But that limitation then brings compassion, brings understanding, and then as you realize your limitations, then the universal mind then moves in on you, because you realize your limitations. And as you realize your limitations, you release those limitations within a state of samadhi that releases you from all concerns. As you're going to release of more concerns, then you're going to quietude until the samadhi disappears, joy disappears, and then bliss disappears, and then you go into a state of empty consciousness. Then time and space doesn't exist anymore.